Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Amen, no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Amen, no rain.
After everything that went down with the firing of the guy, right? The day before they're about to have the second biggest pay-per-view of the year in Chicago, the company came together, and I think they were led by Bryan Danielson. We'll talk about Moxley too in a little bit, but I just want to specifically talk about Danielson. He shows up on Collision, and it's almost like the guy is not even important anymore. We got the American Dragon back. He answers the challenge for Ricky Starks. They go into All Out. They have what I think is, I don't really do star ratings, but if that's not a 5-star match, to get rid of the star ratings altogether. They shouldn't just have him anymore if that's not a 5-star match. With Ricky Starks, he makes a guy, galvanizes the company, and then now he's probably going to be he's replacing CM Punk on Collision as kind of like their top star now. And I think he's even going to have like a backstage role that kind of similar to what Punk had, right?
You said the name. We weren't supposed to say the name. Oh, I did too. So now we're even. Yeah. I was on the Voices of Wrestling Slack channel during the show because I kind of like taking the temperature of what's going on. And they were all like, oh, yeah, 475, 4.5. I just said, man, between the music and the vibe and being here in the crowd and just feeling what that match was, if that's not a 5-star match, I don't know what is. And I'm not a star guy either. Like, I don't have a notebook. Like, I don't think about wrestling in this way. Like, I have a hard time quantifying art in general, but yeah, for me, that might be the best match I've ever seen live. Like I struggle to find one better. And our buddy Josiah, he said to us in our chat, he's like, hey, man, that's like Austin Hart. And I didn't think about it at the time, but there's a lot of parallels there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's really a match that could turn the company around. And I think the Austin Hart match we started to see the early stages of WWF really starting to turn around.
That's true.
And now I really do think that Bryan Danielson, dude, he beat the shit out of Ricky. Dude, I've never seen a guy take a beating that bad in a wrestling match before.
I don't remember seeing a strap hit someone in the face as many times as it hit Ricky Starks.
It was quite uncomfortable.
King of Norse's noted spreadsheet guy, JD. My wife, if she could hear you say that, would be laughing herself in tears. I couldn't open an Excel spreadsheet if you asked me to. Like, I'm so unorganized, as Mike can attest to, from having done a show with me for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I am a spreadsheet guy, but I don't put wrestling matches in a spreadsheet. I don't have time for that. But I did at one point whenever I was doing my Impact articles. I kept all of their ratings in a spreadsheet, kind of like Brandon Thurston. I started my own, and then I color-coded them and all that stuff. And I was like, I put formulas in there because I'm very much a spreadsheet guy. But
John Muse says it's a 5. Considered going 5.25. Thinks Dave will go 5 tomorrow.
I think it will be a 5 tomorrow. I think that's the over-under is 5. Right.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if it ain't a 5, I don't know what a 5 is.
And what makes me go even stronger on it being a 5, I saw what you guys said about the match before I actually watched it. And I was just like, and when that happens, when someone's like, it's the best match I've ever seen live, oh, that's definitely a 5-star. I typically will be like going into it like, oh, that's probably not as good as they think it is.
I think the same thing. I immediately do the same thing.
Dude, I went into it and I was like, it's every bit as good as JD and Josiah and John and all the other guys said it was. It really is that good. It's one of those matches I could probably watch more than one time, and I don't really watch modern matches more than once right now. Like on purpose. I don't like sometimes if I'm watching Impact on Access, and I have a couple times here recently just because I've been off early on Thursdays. Some old New Japan matches will come on. I'll watch those again just because it's on. But I typically don't go out of my way to watch a match more than once. And I'm probably going to watch that match again this weekend just because I'm like, it's that good.
I thought about buying the pay-per-view just to watch the match. And then I came to my senses and realized that's $50 after you just spent $50. Don't be a mark. Yeah. So I'll see it some way, shape, or form. I'm sure Mike will tell me some means with which I can watch it.
I already have a Google Drive link for you if you want it. Yeah.
See, this is why I love you, man, because you and I, man, we're on the same page. So Muse says best strap match he's ever seen. Mike, name another great strap match. I mean, the only one that comes to mind is Vader Sting, and that one's okay, you know?
Yeah, Vader Sting. And you know what one I really liked? And somebody in the chat could correct me on the exact pay-per-view, but I think it was Beware of Dog. It was back in '96, Steve Austin versus Savio Vega.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
They beat the hell out of each other. But that was, obviously I was 12 when that happened. So the things that you like when you're 12 are probably not as good as they are when you're 40. I just remember that one being very good, and that was before Steve Austin really made it big. This was like right before he had the Bret Hart feud and right before King of the Ring. So I just remember that one being really, really good. I'm trying to think if there's been, because I really don't like the WWE style strap match where you have to like touch all four corners. I think
WCW was the same way.
I don't like that either.
No, I agree. Four corners matches are dumb. Like Sting and Cole, I think it had the same finish as like Sting and Cole out there, where Sting gets splashed, and that's the fourth. And it was just like, I don't like the finish. Someone was bitching about it next to me, like in the crowd. So I was like, oh, they're not touching the corners. And I remember thinking, good, that's stupid.
Joseph said Danielson and Bray Wyatt actually had a very good. Actually, I do remember that one.
I didn't.
That one was very good. And then Josiah says Vader Sting was a 5-star, and this one was better for sure. So
did Dave write that one 5 stars? Is that 5 stars from Dave?
Dude, I don't know.
That's why I'm hoping Josiah responds to that eventually.
Yeah. But so that was really good. And then whenever there's chaos and turmoil in AEW, the guy that they tend to turn to the most, whom I think, and I think is probably the most important wrestler in AEW since their inception, has been Jon Moxley. And this guy, they're like, look, we need you to go. We need you to be in another main event. We need you to tear the house down, and we need to put another title on you. He went out there, and him and OC, I thought had just a tremendous match. And if they didn't send the crowd home happy, I know that people didn't really care for the finish. I was fine with it. I think they really brought together everybody with those two matches specifically. I think that was kind of like a unifying moment with the company with those two matches.
3 years ago, I wrote an article for Garrett at Fight Game about how Jon Moxley was the perfect guy to shepherd AEW through the pandemic era. He was a great stable presence. He was the rock the company needed. That was a 3-year-old article, and they've gone back to him 2 other times since then. It's like when in case of emergency, break glass, and there's Jon Moxley fittingly behind glass that can shatter all over him. So it's just, I mean, like, are there 2 better leaders for a company, right? 2 selfless dudes that will do anything just to help, right? And they're just great whenever given the opportunity. Like, I was not expecting to get a Danielson match, and not only do we get a Danielson match, we get one of the best Danielson matches in a decade with the final countdown. And then Jon Moxley comes and just, the story of Orange Cassidy in this company has been one that I don't think anybody would have seen coming. Like, I remember in 2019, because I didn't get him when they first, because remember about 2018 is when OC first started really, really getting notoriety on the indies, right?
And I wasn't a fan, by the way, but go ahead.
The match that made me a fan was him, and I hate saying his name because he's a scumbag, but David Starr. They had a match, and I think it was Beyond, and I just like, oh, I get it now. I get it. And I started to like think, okay, I dig this guy. The progression of Orange Cassidy to like being this nonchalant dude that actually is like the hardest working dude with the most heart is fascinating. Like, he's the most unconventional baby face, but he's like an old school Southern style baby face that has the connection to the crowd. Yeah. He's very much like Ricky Morton. Yeah. But I mean, I know that I think Jim's Cornette just threw up and doesn't know why somewhere, but like, I can't think of another guy that's more like him. And Moxley was the perfect foil for that type of character on this evening. Like, these 2 guys they're the MVPs of the company time and time again.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think with everything going on in the company, I really do feel like they saved it. Now, they weren't going to go out of business or nothing like that, but I think that, they really, losing the guy who we're going to talk about here in a couple minutes, really could have tanked the stock of this company. And these guys putting on the performances that they did, Danielson coming back from injury unannounced, and then having the match of his life, I really think, help right the ship here, help steer the ship into a really good direction. Now, I think Collision, I think that one's going to be tough from now on. And it was already getting to be tough. I know you have football season coming up, and, I don't know, people are always looking at the ratings. They're just dying to call something a failure. I don't think it's ever going to be that, but I think that's going to be tough. But now, now that there's no like hard divide between the two shows, we can actually see a lot more big stars on Collision going forward.
Here's the thing with Collision, right? You have to take the ratings. You have to throw them away. They were number 4 last week with not a good rating, but it was number 4 in the time slot, right? Like, that's fine. You're not going to win college football. You're not going to be college football. So don't even try. No. What you need to now, you have to understand this. Like, what you have right now is you have a slate. You have a tabula rasa. You can do whatever, and it really doesn't matter because the people who are going to watch Collision on Saturday are going to watch it every single week, right? I have a hard time watching Collision every single week because I'm busy. Right. You have a family, you do stuff like, so what you can do is you can play around. You can experiment with things, but you're right. They do need to get bigger stars on this more frequently, but then you've got to pepper in those bigger stars. Cause the big problem with Collision, it was the same, like 8 guys every week. Right. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't enough variety. You got to keep
and
those
a lot
8
of squash
guys.
matches. And they had a lot of squash matches too.
I don't hate squash matches. I think you need a couple of them, but I think more than that, you need stars, right? Yeah. And without Punk, you're going to need more star power. So who better than to base the show on than Bryan Danielson, right? The guy who, I hate to say this, but it's true. Everything CM Punk claimed to be, Bryan Danielson actually is.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. Like the guy that CM Punk tells us he is all the time, Danielson has walked that walk and talked that talk for the last 2 decades. That's just him. So you can make him the focal point of Collision, bring in Mox when you can, and then just keep it going. What I don't want is I don't want Collision to feel like another Dynamite. Collision has a different feel to it. I want them to keep that, but just incorporating some of those Wednesday night guys, but keeping that core, because it looks like Roosh is going to be a big part of it. Ricky's a huge part of it, who's ready to make another step. I want that show to have its own identity and not just be Thunder or not just be. But let's be honest, SmackDown, for the vast majority of its existence, did not matter until 2019.
When they went to Fox. Yeah, it was always like a B show. Yeah. And it wasn't really like, outside of the early Paul Heyman booked years, it wasn't really anything worth watching. It just kind of existed for a long time.
It was just a thing.
Because they were getting TV contract money, so they just kind of just existed. But now it's really the A show because it's on Fox and in prime time on Friday nights. So and they're getting all this money from USA, so they have to make Raw its own thing, and they're 2 very different shows. They have separate rosters that tend to bounce back and forth, and that's working out for them. They're doing great with what they got going on. But I think you're right. I think that originally I thought that Collision was going to be a tough watch without Punk. I still think it's going to struggle a little bit, but Danielson is definitely the right guy to build that show around.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A-game. Amen, no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A-game, better bring your A-game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click,